Ignore her, my mom is mad. I didn't drop the lemon tart. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just stood there realizing something deeper than humiliation. My own son had erased everything I ever did for him, and that was the night I decided, if he wanted to write me off, I'd be the one holding the pen at the end. My name is Margot Jennings. I'm 64. I taught second grade for over 30 years in Dover, Delaware. I've lived in the same modest house since 1992. I raised my son Dylan alone after a drunk driver took my husband's life. Dylan was 10, I was 34, and somehow I held it all together. I worked 2 jobs, canceled my own doctor visits so he could have braces, skipped vacations, holidays, birthdays, to make sure he never missed a single school trip. And when he wanted to start his own real estate company, I emptied my retirement fund, gave him $38,000, and co-signed his first office lease. He promised to pay me back. I told him not to worry. He never did, but I didn't resent him. Mothers don't count. We just keep giving. Last year, Dylan's marriage fell apart. I let him move back in. I handed him access to my online banking just to help with bills. I even put his name on my utility account. I told myself, he's been through a lot, he'll bounce back. What I didn't know was, he already had. He just didn't need me anymore. Because when someone decides you're no longer useful, they don't tell you directly. They start slowly erasing you, from decisions, from documents, from dignity. I didn't realize it then, but that night at the party was the opening scene of a revenge story I never meant to write. And now, I'm going to tell you how it ends. The moment came so quickly, I didn't even feel it at first. It was like hearing a joke in a language you almost understand, just enough to know it was about you. It was Dylan's 37th birthday. He rented a local winery, invited his clients, his new girlfriend, and a few old college friends. He said, "You don't have to bring anything, Mom." But I baked my lemon tart anyway. It was his favorite when he was little. I walked in just as he raised his glass. I thought he might thank me, or even just acknowledge I was there. Instead, he chuckled and said, "If my mom says anything weird tonight, just smile. She's kind of gone off mentally." Then louder, "Ignore her. My mom is mad. She talks to the oven sometimes." People laughed. One woman clapped. Someone muttered, "Poor thing." And I stood there, not even 10 feet away, holding the tart in both hands like it might protect me. It wasn't just cruel, it was deliberate. It was a public declaration. I don't count anymore. That night, back at the house, I waited for him to apologize. He didn't. In fact, he didn't even mention it. I asked if he needed help cleaning up. He said, "Why don't you get some rest, Mom? You've been acting off." The next morning, I tried to check my online banking. Locked out. Tried the backup password. Nothing. I called Dylan. He texted back 3 hours later, "I'll look into it. Don't stress." When I finally got back in, I saw a note. Access suspended by primary account holder. I wasn't the primary. He was. Let me ask you something, and I mean this from one woman to another. Have you ever been made to feel invisible in your own life? Let me know in the comments. I'm not asking for sympathy. I just want to know I'm not alone. Because that's how it starts. Not with one big betrayal, but with small, careful cuts. He started moving my medications into different drawers. My mail disappeared. My doctor appointments were rescheduled without my consent. And every time I said something, Dylan would smile and say, "Don't worry, Mom, I've got it handled." No, he didn't. He was handling me. And somewhere deep in my gut, I started to feel it. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a setup. It didn't come like a storm. It came like fog, soft, creeping, and before I realized it, I couldn't see the ground beneath my own feet. It started with little things. My keys weren't where I left them. My pill organizer had 2 days missing. I'd make a grocery list and then it'd vanish. I told myself, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I've got too much on my mind, but deep down I knew better. Because this wasn't random. It was too perfect. Too well-timed, too consistent. Then came the call. A nurse from a clinic I'd never heard of called to confirm my follow-up appointment for memory testing. I said, "You've got the wrong number." She read back my full name, date of birth, and address. It was me. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I checked my calendar app, the one Dylan set up, just to keep me organized. There it was, next Thursday, 11:30 a.m., labeled memory. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my own shoes for 20 minutes, wondering if maybe I did forget something. And that's when I said it out loud, just a whisper. What if he's right? That one sentence nearly broke me. Because once you start questioning your own memory, they've already won. That's the crack they wait for. That tiny opening where they can slide in and take control. I opened my medicine cabinet, lined up every pill bottle. They looked normal. But then I noticed my anxiety meds? The capsules were a different color. I checked the label, compared it to the last refill. The pharmacy code didn't match. I called the pharmacy the next morning and asked who picked them up. The tech got quiet, then said, "A male family member. Says authorized." I never authorized him. Not on paper, not over the phone. That was the moment the fog started to lift. Not because I had answers, but because I finally had proof that I wasn't imagining it. He wasn't just managing my life. He was erasing it. Quietly, strategically. Like I was some old file on a desktop that no one would miss once deleted. And I knew if I didn't act soon, I'd be gone. On paper, in memory, in law. Long before anyone realized I was still standing right there. I didn't have a dramatic breakdown. No screaming, no shaking fists, no slamming drawers. What I had was stillness and silence. I remember sitting in my kitchen one morning, holding a spoon and forgetting why I was even holding it. Not because I was slipping, but because I was overwhelmed. Then I looked down at my hands, these same hands that packed school lunches, graded homework, paid bills on a teacher's salary for 30 years, and I whispered to myself, "You raised a boy who's now trying to erase you." That was the click. That was the moment I stopped asking questions like, "Why would he do this to me?" and started asking, "How do I stop it?" So I made coffee, sat at the table, opened my yellow notebook, and wrote a single sentence. He thinks I'm weak enough to manipulate, but I'm still sharp enough to remember. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Carl. Carl used to be my husband's best friend, served with him in the Navy, fixed everything in our house from the coffee maker to the porch railing. I hadn't spoken to him since the funeral 5 years ago. He picked up on the third ring. "Shannon?" he said. I swallowed hard. "It's Margot," I replied. "I need to talk." We met at the old American Legion Hall that Saturday morning. Smelled the same as always, burnt coffee, floor polish, memories. Carl listened to everything. Didn't interrupt. Didn't doubt me. Just nodded, slow and steady. Then he said something that turned my blood cold. "Dylan came by here a while back, asked about your husband's will, said he was working on estate updates." Estate updates? Carl reached into his vest pocket and handed me a wrinkled napkin. A name written in shaky blue ink. Scott Delaney, estate attorney, McKinney. He looked smug, Carl said. Thought I was too old to notice, but I noticed. I stared at that napkin like it held the whole blueprint. Because if Dylan was talking to lawyers before I even knew what was happening, this wasn't about concern. It was about control, and I was already behind. So I called the number. Not as myself, but pretending to be my own assistant. "Hi, I'm confirming a meeting for Miss Jennings regarding a deed transfer." The woman on the line said, "Yes, we have her down for Wednesday at 2 p.m. That was it. That was the crack in the wall. And now that I'd found it, I wasn't backing down. After that call, I stopped trying to prove I was fine. I stopped correcting people when they repeated things I'd already said. Stopped getting defensive when Dylan talked slow to me, like I was 5. Stopped arguing when he took the mail before I could check it. Instead, I started playing along, not because I was giving up, but because I finally understood. If I wanted to win, I had to let him believe he already had. So I let my memory slip. I asked him to remind me where the sugar was. I called him by his father's name once, just once, and watched the flicker of triumph in his eyes. He thought he was winning. That's when I got to work. I went back to Carl's, borrowed an old iPad. We taped it to the inside of my laundry vent, facing the dryer, motion activated, silent, hidden. For 3 days, I didn't touch a thing. I just waited. And on the 4th day, it happened. Dylan walked in on a call, pacing, restless, didn't even check the room. "She signs anything now," he said into the phone. "Just needs a little push. I'll get her on the deed next week. She won't remember 5 minutes later." I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just backed up the footage twice, once to the cloud, once to a flash drive. Then I smiled for the first time in weeks. I started setting the stage. Printed copies of my husband's original deed, gathered bank statements, got a notarized statement from Carl describing Dylan's visit and request about the will, made an appointment with the estate lawyer, but not to cancel, to let him show his hand. And I still said nothing to Dylan. I still smiled, still acted lost, still let him believe he had me tucked neatly away like a file in a drawer. But the truth was, I was the drawer. And every word, every paper, every step he took, I was collecting it all. He thought I was weak, but I was a teacher for 30 years. I've caught better liars with worse excuses, and now I wasn't confused. I wasn't fading. I was waiting. Because the final move had to be perfect, not loud, not messy, just undeniable. The courthouse was cold, not the air, the walls, the stairs, the silence before everything unfolds. I wore my late husband's navy blue blazer. It didn't quite fit anymore, but I liked the way it made me feel. Solid, grounded, like I wasn't walking in there alone. Dylan was already sitting outside the courtroom, scrolling his phone like this was just a routine meeting. He didn't even look up when I walked by. And that was fine, because when the judge called my name, I stood. No lawyer, no big speech, just a folder, thick, tabbed, numbered, everything. The pharmacy record, the call log, the notarized napkin from Carl, the hidden camera footage, the calendar app with forged appointments, and the audio, his voice, clear as day. "She signs anything now, I'll flip the house before she figures it out." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look at Dylan. I let the paper speak. The judge listened, took notes, paused at the camera footage, then looked at Dylan and said, "Who installed surveillance in her home without her consent?" His lawyer tried to object. The judge waved him off. When it ended, the judge leaned back, folded his hands, and said, "All powers of attorney are hereby terminated. Immediate investigation into elder financial abuse is recommended." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. Because that wasn't the win I wanted. I just nodded, whispered thank you, and walked out of that building with my name, my rights, and my house. A week later, I hosted a small dinner. Nothing fancy, just the people who believed me. Carl brought homemade bread. Janice from church brought flowers. Even Eli came, quiet but present, holding a grocery bag of strawberries and looking like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. And that was enough. We sat in the backyard under string lights, same ones Dylan and I had hung up for his party, only this time the space felt mine again. Safe, whole. I didn't bring up court, didn't mention Dylan, didn't need to, because the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's removing them from your life so completely they no longer exist in the future you're building. That night, I stood up, raised my glass, and said, "If they ever try to take your voice, your name, or your mind, don't shout, don't beg to be believed. Just wait, watch, and make sure when you strike back, they never get back up." There was no applause, just stillness. And I knew everyone at that table understood. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, like your life, your voice, or your years of sacrifice didn't count, tell me in the comments, what would you say if they tried to erase you? Because sometimes just saying, "I'm still here," is the strongest thing we can do.